On November 11, 1918, the guns of war silenced and World War I came to an end. 4 months later, in the city of Baguio, a baby girl was born to Regino and Agapita Villanueva. Sharing her birthday with her mother, the infant girl came into the world on March 23, 1919, the third child and first daughter of the Villanueva family. They named her Paz in honor of the new peace for which they were grateful. Bernardino Lamanosa, her maternal grandfather, delivered the infant girl with his own hands. Paz's father, Regino, the city secretary of Baguio, signed her birth certificate himself. It was during Paz's early childhood when her father's search for faith led him to the Seventh-day Adventist Church. Leaving behind the security and respect that came with a position of political importance, Regino moved his family to Tagadin and then eventually to the city of Pasay outside Manila to follow their newfound faith. In Pasay, he served as one of the vernacular editors who translated Adventist literature into the Ilocano dialect at the Philippine Publishing House, allowing him to share his new faith with his fellow countrymen.
My father, he was a man of God. Just the Bible is the first book in the house. And my father was very kind. And we had morning worship, and we had more evening worship. When we wake up, we get all dressed, morning worship, all of us, and then breakfast, and then all go to school.
Throughout this time, Regino and Agapita instilled a sincere devotion to learning and education in their children, including young Paz. The Philippine Seventh-day Adventist Academy was founded in Pasay in 1917. Later, it would become Philippine Union College and ultimately the Adventist University of the Philippines. As the school grew through the 1920s and 30s, so did young Paz Villanueva. Her years at PUC proved extremely formative, bringing personal growth, lasting friendships, and eternal love. One particular friendship proved especially meaningful.
My friend Naomi Manalaysay was born deaf-mute. She was sent to a special school until third year high school, for since there was no fourth year offered, she was transferred to PUC Academy where I was attending. One day I met Naomi in the library where we started to communicate by writing on a slip of paper. To facilitate our communication, she taught me the sign language alphabets and shortcut signs. From then on, we sat beside each other in all our classes for her to get the gist of the lectures by reading my fingers. We did this throughout fourth year high school and first year college. To me, the fruit of my labor meant more than the process, for I counted it a great privilege to have played a role in her education.
Upon completion of her studies in 1937, Paz was accepted to nursing school, but an unexpected call to service changed those plans. On the day of her college commencement, the university president called Paz to his office. Paz's confusion only grew when she found not only the university president awaiting her arrival, but also the union president, Elder R.R. Figueroa. The two respected gentlemen proceeded to request Paz place her studies on hold so that she may serve as the personal secretary of the union president. Taken aback, Paz asked for time to consider their offer. After Paz asked her wise father, Regino, for advice, he reminded her that she was called to serve wherever she was needed, and that at that moment she was needed by Elder Figueroa. Seeing the prudence of her father's advice, Paz accepted the position and dutifully served Elder Figueroa on a mission that would later lead him to become president of the General Conference of the Worldwide Seventh-day Adventist Church. During this period, Paz caught the eyes of many male classmates. As Paz was a bright and poised young woman, numerous young men hoped to become her suitor, but none had the courage to ask permission of her highly respected and stoic father. That is, until a faithful Chinese gentleman entered her life. Philip Peng, a fellow classmate, smitten with Paz, found the courage to ask Regino's permission to court her. After much thought and prayer with the rest of the family, Regino agreed and the courtship of Paz and Philip began, always in the presence of chaperones, including Paz's little sister, Raquel. On March 24, 1940, Paz Villanueva married Philip Peng in a ceremony presided over by Elder Figueroa. Their happiness together grew on April 3, 1941, with the birth of their first son, Philip Peng Jr. Throughout this time of joy and growth, the happy couple could not foresee the drastic turn history would thrust upon them and the challenges that awaited in the coming years.
In the early morning of December 8, 1941, bang! Instantly the house shook. All houses shook. Rafters rattled because of the strength of a great earthquake. After a split second, my husband sat up with a trembling in his voice and whispered, "Mama, this must be war." We dropped to our knees and prayed.
When the Japanese conquest and brutal occupation of the Philippines began, Paz's education had done little to prepare her for the daring and ingenuity that she would need to save her family and friends. The woman named for peace found herself surrounded by war. After the Japanese soldiers seized the Philippine Union offices and mission compound, Philip moved their family to a home further away which would be less enticing to the Japanese forces. A German neighbor living in front of the walled compound flew the Nazi flag to further hinder Japanese interference. During this time, much responsibility fell upon Paz. As a Chinese man easily mistaken for Japanese, Philip could not safely travel the streets. On one occasion, Paz's father Regino became the target of the Japanese forces and needed to seek shelter with his daughter. Paz and the rest of the family practiced going to dugout air raid shelters and hiding in the attic should marauding Japanese soldiers come their way. To help sustain the family, Paz illegally sold the goods of American missionaries who were desperate for any source of income. While she risked harsh punishment from the Japanese authorities, she saved and sustained her dear friends. As conditions worsened and rationing within the city threatened the family's health, Paz and Philip traveled with the rest of the Villanueva family to their home region of Tagadin. There they found greater safety and nourishment.
My mother, she had lands given to her by her parents. And so her money was really rice. She has people who planted rice, harvested rice, and gave us rice. So the money of trading or buying was rice. So we did not starve because we had land and food during a wartime. And that's one lesson I always remember my mother said.
When peace arrived in 1945, little remained of the country they called home. They realized they needed a new home and a new beginning, for Paz and her family still had much to accomplish. In times of war, hope becomes more important than ever. One way of maintaining hope is making promises for the future. Missing his family, Philip asked Paz to promise that they would reunite with his parents should they survive the war. Paz kept that promise. When the guns silenced once again, the Peng family decided to move to Thailand, where Philip's father served as a chaplain of the Adventist Mission Hospital. It was a decision that made sense given that Thailand held more promising opportunities than the devastated Philippines. On November 11, 1946, Paz, who was pregnant with her second child, flew on a cargo plane to Bangkok. Shortly thereafter, on January 28, 1947, they welcomed their son, Alwyn, into the world. In 1948, Regino Villanueva died. Paz returned to the Philippines to join her family in their grief.
I brought my sister in Thailand. My father was dying, and she came. I said, I'm going to teaching because the Manila Sanitarium was bombed during the Japanese time and they cannot offer nursing. But my sister Paz said, there's a school of nursing in Bangkok. So when she went home, after 4 weeks, she went back to Thailand. She went to the School of Nursing and she asked if they were offering it to foreigners. And they said yes. So my sister asked the School of Nursing they could send me papers. So we were so happy when they got us in Thailand. See, they paid for us because my father just died. We had nothing. So she's the one I know she paid my passport, she paid my everything that I needed because my father just died. That is why it was so hard. If I trace our history, it was so hard. It was so hard.
In addition to her growing role as a mother, Paz once again heeded the call to serve others, this time as a teacher. After hearing Paz speak, a neighbor asked her to teach her English, which eventually extended to lessons for several young ladies. Then in 1948, Paz was approached to teach children of the American missionaries. Working alongside Esther Feltus, Paz helped create the Child Training Center, teaching out of the garage of Dr. Ralph Waddell. As the school grew, they welcomed local children as well and evolved into the Ekamai International School. ETS continues to educate students to this day. Teaching these children provided Paz with tremendous satisfaction and fond memories. The Pengs were quick to welcome students and staff into their home as family, just as their own family continued to grow. On February 16, 1951, Eileen was born. Along with adopted daughters Ellen and Jenny, the Peng family was complete. The time in Thailand proved extremely joyous and prosperous. In 1954, Paz and Philip embarked on a 6-month journey that spanned around the globe. After attending the General Conference of the Seventh-day Adventist Church in San Francisco, they journeyed cross-country, visiting the natural wonders of America, as well as the nation's capital. Then they sailed across the Atlantic to visit England, France, and several other countries in Europe, as well as the Holy Land, before finally returning to Thailand. A couple years later, Paz brought Alan and Eileen to the Philippines for the first time to become acquainted with their relatives. It would be the first of several visits with family. But as much as Paz welcomed stability, she could still hear the voices of her parents and their call to expand her own education. The 1960s would bring new callings and opportunities in new lands. In 1965, Paz traveled to the United States to pursue a bachelor degree at Columbia Union College in Maryland, finishing what she started in 1937. While leaving her family and the comforts of Thailand was not an easy decision, Paz welcomed the challenge and embraced the opportunity to be reunited with her sister Raquel, her husband Nick, and their young daughter Nilda. As the seasons changed and her studies progressed, Paz found another home half a world away from the one she had known. After 3 years away, Paz graduated from CUC with a bachelor degree in secretarial science. She returned to her family in Thailand and she taught secretarial science at one of the colleges in Bangkok. Soon, the threat of war spilling over from neighboring Vietnam caused the Pengs once again to consider their safety. In the coming years, Paz continued to spend increasing amounts of time in the United States, accompanying Eileen to college in 1970, and then permanently in 1975, with Philip following in 1976. On August 7, 1973, a new generation of Pengs entered the world with the birth of Jason. The Pengs settled in Virginia Beach in the former home of Raquel and Nick Tolentino, who moved next door, where they remain to this day. For the Tolentino girls, Paz became much more than an auntie. Adopting a role more akin to a second mother, the title auntie would never be big enough for Paz. In the Tolentino family, she would henceforth be known as Mati. Paz continued to keep herself busy through helping others. She also traveled to California to help care for her elderly mother, Agapita. Eventually, Agapita would move to Virginia Beach until her death in 1990, at the age of 96. Echoing the legacy of her family, Paz remained active in her Adventist faith. Decades earlier, her grandfather, Serapion Villanueva, donated land in Tagadin for the establishment of an Adventist church. Likewise, Paz assisted in the fundraising that led to the purchase of the current Virginia Beach Seventh-day Adventist Church. In the years that followed, Paz found the peace for which she was named, spending summers in Virginia Beach and winters in Florida. It was a peace shared with Philip for a number of years. On December 12, 2011, Paz lost her lifelong companion and true love when Philip passed away after 100 years of life. Despite this tremendous loss, Paz continues to find the love and support of family. Residing with Eileen, she enjoys a quiet life and serves as a font of wisdom cherished by the younger generations, a wisdom that can only be attained through a rich and textured life. Ellen G. White once wrote, "It is not earthly rank, nor birth, nor nationality, nor religious privilege which proves that we are members of the family of God. It is love, a love that embraces all humanity." For a century, Paz Villanueva Peng has lived a life of service and love that has stretched through the years and across the globe. It is a love cherished by all those whose lives have been touched by her and is rooted in an abiding faith in God.
There are places I remember all my life, 'cause some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone, and some remain. All these places have their moments with lovers and friends. I still can recall some are dead and some are living. In my life, I've loved them all. But of all these friends and lovers, there is no one compares with you. And these memories lose their meaning when I think of love as something new. Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more. Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before. I know I'll often stop and think about them. In my life, I love you more. In my life, I love you more.
God has been very good to our family. And from all these experiences, there is no doubt at all that once you commit yourself, you commit your problems and worries to God and pray earnestly, reverently, in great what? Faith. There is where we need that. You must have faith. God hears your prayer, and God will hear it in different ways in his own time. In all thy ways, acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. Ask, and shall be given to you. Seek, and ye shall find. He that seeketh shall find. These are proof that if we have faith, great faith, to whom? To God, he will answer. Thank you.
Amen.